Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and co-chair of the American Capitalist Party. This time I said co-chair instead of vice chair. I hope you noticed that, partner. Michael Liebowitz, who is also the host of his own show, The Rational Egoist, which you should be watching as often as possible if you want your IQ to rise. I'm not saying that as a matter of hubris. I'm saying that as a matter of fact. It's just a known fact that your IQ will rise. You know, Ayn Rand once said that when she read certain books, she felt herself getting smarter. And I felt myself getting smarter when I read Ayn Rand. And I feel myself getting smarter when I watch The Rational Egoist. Is there anything new coming up, or do we have the same?
Today, actually, when this is over, I'm interviewing Patrick Carroll, who used to work for the Foundation for Economic Education. He's a young guy. We're going to be discussing the Liberty Movement, how communication is important within the Liberty Movement to spread the message, what he sees as the future of the Liberty Movement, that sort of thing. Tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing Megan Ribbons about her inductive approach to biology. So that should be out this week. Next week, I've got coming up Nikolai Wiesel. We're going to be discussing Frederick Bastiat. And who else do I got? I've got later on this month, Alexander Pudio. We're discussing how no is sometimes good to hear because it helps us to grow, helps us to move forward. And Christine Laporte also I'll be interviewing about her book. So we've got a lot coming up in August. I will have a lot more as well.
Didn't Nietzsche say that no was the sacred no? Was that the word that he used to describe no? Do you remember?
I don't know everything Nietzsche said. I know he said he who has a what to live for can deal with it anyhow, or he who has a why to live for. I think that's a good one.
He had some great maxims.
I mean, he does. He did. Yeah.
I mean, I've read about 4 or 5 of his books, but I got to tell you, most of them left me sort of down. Even though he was an egoist and a passionate egoist, he was an irrationalist. But taken in bits and pieces, some of his stuff were literally maxims to live by. One of the most interesting things he said was, "Live as if you are on the slopes of Vesuvius. Live dangerously." I love that idea. For anybody out there who's feeling a little bit trepidatious about life, now throw that aside and just go for it. And this is not an endorsement to live actually dangerously, as in literally dangerously, but definitely take chances. Here we go. I knew you posted this for a reason. Maybe I would feel smarter reading Michael's book. I probably will, and I'm going to push it to the further ahead in my queue, because this amount of weekly and daily ball busting now that I'm getting for not reading your book is going to incentivize me. Yes, read View from the Cage. Okay, Lee, thank you very much. Open your lollipop now, and put it in your mouth, please.
Okay, I want to tell you something about this, though. So
I will.
Ariana wrote down the myth of Sisyphus. That myth actually has special meaning to me because my friend Carlos Rebolo, who's one of my closest friends on earth, we spent a lot of time in prison together. But the way that we originally met was he approached me. He had written an essay called The Sisyphean Incentive. And he asked me if I would read it and, give him my thoughts on it. And I told him, look, I'll do it, but understand that I don't bullshit people. So if your essay sucks, I'm going to tell you I think it sucks, because in prison, this is a common thing where guys bring things and they want you to, read their things or help them with it. But oftentimes what they really want
is also common in Hollywood, my friend. I just want
they just want a pat on the back, really. But Carlos had me read it, and I was not very impressed. And I gave him a harsh criticism of it. And he took it very well in stride, learned from it. And that's 2005, and we're still friends to this day. So that story, The Myth of Sisyphus, has a great personal meaning to me.
I'm a little disappointed in Persephone at the moment, though, because she said, "Welcome to the Capitalist Corner for your daily dose of discussion about Marx's balls." Now, this has just been a coincidence. The last 3 days, this has been not the topic of conversation, but certainly a secondary topic of conversation. but totally accidental, Persephone. So this is not going to be like we're not going to get a daily dose of my. I'm not even going to go there. We're not going to get a daily dose of that. Trust me.
We are not. But Lord Darius asked what I went to prison for. It's too much to get into right here, Lord Darius. I've written about it in my book, View from a Cage. You can go to my podcast, the Rational Egoist, the latest episode that's out. I'm interviewed by philosopher Andrew Bernstein. We discussed what I went to prison for. Jim Valiant's also interviewed me about it. I've been on the Ian Bick podcast talking about it. So it's all out there. It's easy enough to find. This isn't the format for me to really get into that.
Kat Sterling, you're going to have a lot to say for yourself when I see you in Boston with these comments. Look, the Free Press posted something that I saw on the news actually yesterday. Apparently, Barack Obama has been quite active in trying to stir up the base, try to stimulate some innovation in the Democratic Party, because he was at a fundraiser, the Democratic National Committee, on Friday night. And Obama allegedly told Democrats they needed to toughen up. In his remarks to party donors, the former president said defeating Trump would take less navel gazing and a little less whining and being in the fetal position. I've never seen Democrats as being in the fetal position, even though they like to use victimization as a political lever. I find them to be quite active, quite aggressive, and quite intense. So I think they actually need to do a lot more navel gazing, to be honest with you. I mean, they need to do some internal checks. They need to check their premises big time. They're not going to come to the conclusions that are going to make them any more successful. Unfortunately for them, looking internally means polling people on the outside and seeing what they want, sticking their finger in the air and seeing.
Can I call out a coward? Do you care if I call out a coward?
But love it. Love calling out cowards.
Love it. Let me speak, and then you can tell them whatever you want. Okay, so Lord Darius says, thanks, Michael. Why do you think it's always Jewish people like you and Ayn Rand? Let me tell you. Now, he asked me earlier about prison, and I told him. Now, in prison, we have something called cell gangsters. Cell gangsters are the people who are quiet when they're out in the block, but when they get behind the door, they start with this. And Lord Darius here is very, open about getting on the internet and making his anti-Jewish remarks. But notice that he's a coward who does it behind a fake name, which is what most of them do. So, Lord Darius, I'm going to mute you. You're gone. But I'll tell you what, if you go and strap on some balls, give us your real name, you're welcome back on and we can have a discussion. But for now, you're out.
Yeah, can I just say that anti-Semites are not welcome on this show? You can come on and listen and learn something, but you are not welcome. You're especially not welcome if you hide behind a pseudonym and start throwing rocks from behind your fake shield. We respect courage here, folks, because capitalism, liberty takes courage. It takes courage to live on your own. It takes courage to be a sovereign being. It takes courage to criticize people openly and then to take the blowback from that criticism. That takes courage, my friend. So, Lord Darius, come back when you grow a pair. And we're just confirming, Kat, and what everybody else is saying here, that the show is predominantly about testicular matter, and that's not the case. What do you think about Barack Obama's rather pedestrian call to arms? I think he said nothing very interesting, but that doesn't seem to be unusual.
Well, he's actually caught flack for this before. I remember when he went and he spoke to a black group of something. I don't remember what it was, and he was telling them they needed to stop whining, they needed to stop complaining, they had to get out there. He did something similar this time around in the election, and he's actually taken heat for criticizing people in the past in that manner for being too tough. And, I'm actually with him on this, not with the Democrats specifically, but this idea that, it's always this thing, you can never say anything bad about the sainted American people, right? Especially if you're a politician. You can say whatever you want about anybody else, but the people themselves can never get the blame. And in my view, the people need to toughen the hell up, right? Because everybody screws up in this world. We all do things that we shouldn't do. And the only way we could ever fix them is if they come to our attention. And sometimes we're not just self-aware enough. So I am all for people telling me my faults, tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me where I can improve. Doesn't mean I'm going to listen, right? I'd have to actually agree with what the person's telling me. But nevertheless, I have grown tremendously and learned tremendously from people telling me my flaws or telling me what I'm doing wrong. And so I don't see anything wrong with Obama doing this. Now, will it be effective? Probably not, because people immediately jump up and say he should not be lecturing people, that sort of thing. No, you're not free from the consequences of your speech, certainly. But so what? You know what I mean? I'll take the consequences of anything that I say. And I think Obama ultimately will too. So politically, probably not the most tactful thing to say, right? People evidently, a lot of them like to be, I don't know, like talk to like children, I guess. I don't know. Diana's mother tells me often, my girlfriend, that I'm way too forward and I'm way too blunt with what I say. And she tells me, sometimes it's okay to lie to protect people's feelings. And I said, okay, do you understand though, that when you do that, and now I know you do that, how do I know if you're telling me the truth? I have no idea.
I agree with you. I think that telling white lies is a prelude to telling big lies. And once you tell a white lie, how can anybody take anything that you say seriously? So my wife knows this about me as well. If she asks me something and she wants a particular answer, she's going to get my truth, whatever that may be. And sometimes that is good for me, and sometimes that doesn't work out so well for me. Now, I agree with you that the Democratic Party needs a dressing down, and they need a harsh dressing down. I also agree that the Democratic Party weaponizes fragility, right? For them, the world and human beings are a fragile, fragile place. Everything is on the verge of breaking, and the only solution is them. Now, but by the same token, and this is my opinion, not the opinion of the American Capitalist Party, folks.
The disclaimer, you forgot to give it at the beginning.
Yes. Well, I'm saying it right now. The things that we say here do not necessarily represent the American Capitalist Party, even though we are both chairman and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party. We are giving our own opinions. And my own personal opinion is that the left weaponizes fragility, and they do it in order to leverage power. And when they leverage power, they are savage in the way that they do it. They are relentless in the way that they do it. They have more, well, I'm going to use the term now, balls than the right does when it comes to weaponizing the levers of power for themselves. So in that respect, I think Obama is wrong. Now, I think what the Democrats need to do is stop weaponizing fragility. But if they stop weaponizing fragility, then they become useless. They become useless in the eyes of the American people, because the American people aren't fragile; they're anti-fragile, and they don't need an elitist to do their moral bidding for them. They can do it on their own, and that makes them essentially useless. Which, frankly, the political class is and should be. They consider themselves far too important because the American people have given them way, way, way too much power. And I think the American people understand that now. When you're polling the everyday average guy, he's starting to see the writing on the wall, right? And what is so funny?
I don't know. I've never polled the average guy, and I don't plan on it.
Well, there's been polls recently that have shown that, how the American psyche is shifting with respect to their relationship to government. They're starting to understand that the debt is a real thing, right? They're starting to understand that immigration is actually a good thing. They're starting to understand the things that the Capitalist Party preaches, and that we preach as our own opinion, not necessarily representative of the American Capitalist Party, are also good things, that they're healthy psychologically for them, and that they're healthy economically and good for the country. And so people are starting to come around to this, even though there's an article in the Jacobin which will contradict this later on. I hate that magazine. And thank you for sending me the invite.
And that's why I will keep sending you things. Hey, how would you like to have a quick controversial discussion about ethics?
Sure.
This one you definitely have to qualify. This is going to be our opinion and not the party's. So Dangerous Loaf of Bread says, y'all have a bunch of Christian morals dressed up as something else. It's okay. Maybe some of y'all will come around at some point. Okay. Let me differentiate myself from Christian morals. The meek shall not inherit the earth. It is not
Correct.
harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Although
Correct.
I would use that metaphorically because there is no heaven. It is horrible to sacrifice ourselves for other people. What
Correct.
individuals ought to be doing is doing the best that they can for themselves, gaining as much financial success for themselves as they can, material, spiritual success, all of them. Profit is absolutely wonderful. It's the mainspring of human action.
Correct.
And self-defense is a must. So if you turn the other cheek when someone punches you in your face, you're a dupe.
So is
Mark,
he talking about us? Wait. I agree
he's talking about everybody. I think he's talking about the everybody. So I just wanted to differentiate. And Dangerous Loaf of Bread, as you are, and I appreciate your comment. I'm not trying to pick on you, but I just wanted to differentiate. But as you are hoping that maybe we will come around at some point, we are hoping the same for you.
Indeed, we are. James Valiant says, "Do not love your enemy or submit to evil for Christ's sakes." I agree with that.
Me
I do
too.
not agree with turning the other cheek. I do not think that the enemy is an equal value to me, nor do I think everybody else whom I choose not to value are equal values to me, or that I have to sacrifice my values for them. We do not believe in sacrifice as a value. We think it is a disvalue, folks. We think it's an anti-value. And so the Christian ethics, as far as I can tell, which we see in secularized form in socialism, are the exact antithesis of what we agree with. We agree in rational self-interest, and that rational self-interest is a good thing, not just because it helps everyone, but because it's good for the individual human being to work for his rational self-interest. Yes, and James Valiant says we also judge. And so the
and
Ayn
prepared
Rand
to
judge,
be judged.
Ayn Rand said, "Judge and be prepared to be judged." I'm not quoting that as a piece of scripture, even though it sounds like it. I agree with the sentiment. Judge and be prepared to be judged. We do not fear judgment. We think judgment that is a quality of your volitional consciousness. It's a quality of your reasoning mind. You have to judge in order to live. You have to evaluate people and issues and things in order to live a good life. Judgment is a requirement. So we throw out this concept of judge not lest ye be judged. Judge and be prepared to be judged.
Absolutely. Now, let me just say, right, that in this party, now I'm going to go over to the American Capitalist Party. The only thing that matters is advocating individual rights, right? At its core, a respect for individual rights, the non-initiation of force, getting the government out of our lives. Its only job is to protect rights. So within that framework, you could be an objectivist, you could be a Christian, you can be a humanist. There's plenty of room, as anybody who watches this show knows from Mark and I, for disagreement within the basic framework. So because we happen to be objectivists doesn't mean everybody that joins the party has to suddenly start reading Ayn Rand, and rocking their "Who is John Galt" t-shirt. But we were asked the question, so that's why I answered it. But somebody asked, and I wanted to back up a little bit. So somebody in here asks if we are pro LGBTQ. Lee then tells him, yes, they are a gay couple. No, we're not a gay couple, even though Mark refers to me as his partner. But I think absolutely I'm pro LGBTQ. I don't, but it depends what you mean, right, Mark? Because we're not for giving LGBTQ special favors or banning private people from being able to discriminate against them, or banning them from discriminating against other private people. That is a right that people have. But as far as getting married, as far as living their lives, I see absolutely nothing unethical or immoral about being gay, bisexual, or whatever else is in there. But I do not believe they should be given special treatment by the government, nor do I think the government should be forcing schools to allow them, for instance, to the trans to play in to girls sports when they're actually men. But what I do think, and I think Mark will probably agree, is I think all that stuff should be privatized anyway. And then if women wanted to compete against, trans women, they would be allowed to. It would be perfectly fine. The whole problem there is with compulsion.
Exactly. Ariana says it perfectly. She's the secretary of the party, and I think this speaks for the American Capitalist Party's position.
Ariana said this perfectly?
I think so. I'm minding my own business. I'm pro minding my own business, and now the chats are going so quickly, I'm missing it. I'm pro minding my own business and living my own life and letting others do the same. That's right. So the great thing about, I didn't say she said that perfectly. I'm just looking at what you posted while I was paying attention to something else. They're heterosexual life mates. I'm not going to comment on that. I am going to comment on the American Capitalist Party is an inclusive party. If you believe in individual rights and that the government should leave you alone and that you are your own moral arbiter, that you're a sovereign human being, regardless of where you get your ethics, whether it's religious ethics or irrational ethics as ours, or some other form of ethics, provided you don't harm anybody else, you are free to be a capitalist. You are free to come into the party. The party is inclusive in that respect. You don't have to agree with objectivist ethics to be a capitalist. You need only understand that human beings are sovereign and that force needs to be strictly limited to its retaliatory use. And if you believe those things, you are a capitalist, and you should join the Capitalist Party, which you could find at AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Please join and donate. Also, hit the like and subscribe button if you think this message needs to get out to a wider population of people, because I believe it does, and I think you do too. Again, we are pro-individual, and members of that community are individuals. Amen. But you can be misunderstood when you say something like this, because one time, I think I said something online. I said LGBTQ rights are individual rights, right? Trans rights are individual rights. And I got excoriated for that online because I don't think people understood what that meant, unfortunately for me. But, sometimes we have to categorize people as women's rights or rights for minorities because these people have been traditionally discriminated against. But in the end, it's about extending the umbrella of individual rights to everyone, and not leaving anybody out for any reason. And that just means that the government protects their rights. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to change your opinions about them, even though I think it would be enlightened if you did. No one would force you to change your opinions about them or force you to do business with them, nor would anybody force them to do business with you. You would do business or have associations with those who you voluntarily choose to associate with. What a beautiful world that is. It's not a perfect world, my friend. It doesn't necessarily end in quote unquote utopia, but it's certainly a more beneficent world than the one we're seeing today. Now, speaking of beneficence, an article in the Epoch Times today, Trump threatens Russia with tariffs if no Ukraine deal in 50 days. And he's threatening secondary tariffs on those countries that trade with Russia. So a lot of times, folks, when although these tariffs are so sketchy right now, they come in, they come out, they're not really here, they're here. We don't really know. I don't really know what tariffs are enacted, to be honest with you, at the moment, because there's so many deals happening and so much change going on. There are ways of getting around tariffs. Oftentimes, a country that has a big tariff against it will go through an intermediary country and trade with them, and then trade that article to the United States or to whatever country's using the tariff in order to avoid the tariff. Well, the folks in Washington, greedy little mofos that they are, they understand this. They know that this is a trick of the trade. And so if you choose to go through a third party, they are going to now tariff you if you are doing business with Russia. What do you think about this means of pressuring Russia to stop the war in Ukraine? Do you think it's going to work?
No, I don't think it's going to work. But the thing that to me it really reveals is just how naive Trump is and how much you used the word hubris earlier on, and I think that that's what you have going on with Trump, that he just thought he would be able to make these deals, and that's it. And then when it doesn't happen, he says, a few months ago, I don't know what's wrong with Putin. Putin has changed. No, Donald, Vladimir has not changed, not even a little bit. He's been playing you like a bitch for quite some time now. Perhaps the only one that didn't know this was you, Donald. So, no, I don't think it's going to work. I don't know how he thinks that taxing Americans, which is what these tariffs are, no matter how many times we have to say it, I will repeat and repeat and repeat, how he thinks that taxing Americans is going to get Putin to stop a war. It's not like Putin's going to get elected out of office, right? If things go badly. Putin doesn't have the same calculus that Trump would have. Putin doesn't have the same incentive structure that Trump has. So, I'm going to say it's not going to work, but ultimately, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it will. It's always possible. It's also possible something else happens and intervenes and causes Putin to, agree to a ceasefire, and then Trump takes credit for it, even if he has nothing to do with it. But I'm not optimistic about it. And I think Trump is exposing himself over and over and over for being a dupe.
Exposing himself.
For being a dupe, yes. I don't know what you're thinking of.
Same thing that you thought when I said exposing something about 4 weeks ago. So that
you were talking about exposing yourself. I'm talking about Trump has exposed himself as a dupe.
About exposing myself literally. Here we are again talking about this junk stuff we don't need to talk about. But this is also concurrently going along with NATO supplying Ukraine with weapons, and America also now supplying Ukraine with weapons, which Ukraine is going to pay for, which this of course should have been done 2 years ago. And then I think the war would have been over. The Ukrainians have shown the capacity. You're laughing at something. Are you laughing at deeper with Diego's comment?
I was laughing at Alan Thomas, actually.
Okay, deeper with Diego's
I'm so far. I actually no. See, deeper with Diego's comments are way back. I follow the comments, so I'm way down here.
I stopped. Look, my comment stopped at two men sucking each other's toes isn't gay. Let me just say, sucking anyone's toes is not cool. I don't care who you are. Sucking a toe.
What? Where do you see this stuff?
It's okay. You can scroll up to it. But I have a slightly different opinion, even though I do think Trump is naive, even though I do think Trump is a narcissist, even though I do think he's not wise, he's not shrewd, he doesn't understand Putin, or at least he was flattered enough by Putin to assume that the guy was actually liked him, as opposed to just being a simple psychopath doing whatever he wants to do. That bubble should have been burst a lot longer than it took to be burst. It took Trump a long time to understand that he was dealing with a psychopath who had no interest at all in forming a relationship with him, and that he had no power over this guy, no mystical power over Putin whatsoever. I happen to think that the combination of NATO sending weapons to Ukraine and the sanctions are going to do a pretty good job against Russia for this reason. Russia's been in a wartime economy for 6 years. This is an emergency state of economy. This is the kind of economy that cannot sustain itself at all. Now, even if India backs out and decides not to take the 37% of the market of Russian crude oil that they take, that is a significant blow to the economy of Russia, which is already suffering. Now, we risk the possibility that this psychopath may say, I'm done, I'm going to blow off a ballistic missile. But I don't think he's that suicidal. I don't think he's that insane. He's going to try to get out of this and make himself look good. The only reason he's keeping this up is because he wants to maintain territory and make more territorial claims in the Ukraine than the Ukrainians are willing to give away. But now that NATO is stepping up, I think he might start to have a come to Jesus moment. Maybe that's just me. But I think it will have an impact on him. I don't know if it's a regime change impact, but it will certainly have an impact on him. So we can both differ on that. It may be too little, too late, but I think tariffs with a combination of sending weapons to the Ukrainians so that they can defend themselves adequately is good. The Ukrainians have showed themselves to be pretty resourceful. when they set those drones off and literally took out a third of Putin's nuclear arsenal with drones, cheap drones, that was pretty amazing. Now, however they managed to do that, if they can keep that kind of ingenuity going, I think they've got the upper hand against Putin. And
no, wrong one.
that's
Ariana says, and Ariana is right again. And Ariana is like almost always right. So she says Putin will double down to show strength. I agree. Ariana, our brilliant secretary of the party, she is just right on here, and our chairperson is just wrong. And I don't know, what to do about that.
I agree that he will likely try to double down. But look, when you're weak, there's only so much you can do. The Iranians have doubled down as well because we ceasefire and we took the pressure
when you're
off
weak.
Them, so they doubled
but
down.
Mark,
And
the problem is with that, with the weak thing, is for one, Russia has oil. For two, they've got a huge nuclear arsenal,
most of which probably won't get off the launch pad.
Oh, okay,
Which we have
but
to take out if we want to.
yeah, I think that we should go on that assumption and see how it turns out.
Not the assumption. I think it's true.
But you don't know that their nukes won't get off the launch pad. You're assuming it.
Well, I'm assuming it based on evidence from authoritarian states that usually they are so utterly incompetent that what we saw with Iran, how many missiles actually got through out of the hundreds upon hundreds of ballistic missiles, not just drones. Not a single drone got through to Israel. Okay, but out of the hundreds of ballistic missiles, Israel had an 86% defense rate. 86%. Now, if you were a boxer who could defend 86% of the punches that came your way, you would be the greatest boxer in the history of boxing.
That's true. And all it takes though is one nuke to get through.
Yeah,
right. These aren't ballistic missiles. One nuke to get through. And we're not talking about the reality of the situation. We're talking about how Putin sees the situation and whether Putin is going to respond.
Do you think he is like a Khomeini? Do you think he's a person who looks to the other world for rewards and doesn't care about the material world right now? He cares about it.
No, but I think that anybody who is
that
no. Well, I think that anybody who is that comfortable with murdering his enemies is not somebody that is going to be easily negotiated with. Somebody that's not going to. No, he's not. You never know. But that's what in essence this tariff's supposed to be. It's a negotiating tool.
Right, but
that's what Trump is using it.
What it should be is leverage to make him stop. It should be for regime change, but it should be leverage to make him stop. Period. Not to negotiate, but just to end the war on the terms on Ukrainian terms, and on NATO's terms, not on Putin's terms.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see that happen in the next couple months. It may happen eventually. I mean, look, they're a totalitarian country. They don't exactly have a booming economy. Eventually they won't be able to keep it up. I agree. I just don't think that that's going to happen as a result of Trump's tariffs or anything that's going to be done in the next, what do you say, 50 days? They've got to
always his timelines are not relevant. His timelines are out of touch with the context. So that's true. It should be until they surrender, to be honest with you. The pressure should be kept up.
But that's not even part of the equation. I get it. But that's not part of the equation right now. That's not what's happening, and it's not what's going to happen. The equation is you have a president who's threatening with tariffs, and whether or not that's going to work to get Putin to comply. And no, it's not
just, but it's actually not just it's tariffs that are, and also secondary tariffs against countries that are trading with him, with the idea, and this is at least what the Secretary General of NATO has said, which he sort of thinks is a good idea. Now, he may be brown-nosing Trump, for all I know, but he thinks that this could pressure other countries to put pressure on Russia. Now, Putin, of course, doesn't really care about anything except himself. It's possible. Was sanctioned the hell back, and Putin didn't give it up. Right. He's a billionaire. He's an oligarch. He's not going to suffer. It's the people of Russia who are going to suffer. But maybe the people of Russia suffering is exactly what's needed for regime change.
If if that happens, that's the calculus that would have to change, that the people of Russia themselves would say enough of this, and they're willing to risk their lives to get rid of him. Because he's not going to, if it's not personally affecting him, I don't see him as being the empathetic type. Like, I don't think he cares that other people are suffering. Yeah. So
you don't think Putin reads bedtime stories to little boys and girls at night and tucks them in nicely? No, what he does do is he takes drones and he hunts down children now in the Ukraine and murders them as an act of terror. Now that is a war crime. Why the ICC isn't talking about this, or why the UN isn't calling out Putin as a war criminal right now, but doing that to Israel, is an amazing injustice. And there's going to be a little article about Albanese later on, who is one of the most horrible human beings on the face of the earth.
Oh my God, yes.
He's a terrible human being. And that is the opinion of the American Capitalist Party, in addition to Mark Pellegrino's opinion and apparently Michael Liebowitz's opinion. So there was a really cool article that you sent me for the Foundation for Economic Education. And it was entitled, "It's Not Easy, but We Can All Learn to Think Like Adam Smith." You want to talk about this a little bit? Because I thought this was great. It really talked about bougie values, which I think are they get downplayed by the commies out there, but bougie values are really, really good.
Well, the article ultimately talked about things like risk taking and risk aversion and being able to deal with a dynamic economy, all the things that we're promoting that needs to take place if we're ever going to have a free capitalist society, is people need to become more comfortable with risk, with change, with dynamics, with, out having the type of certainty that you're going to have, a manufacturing job for 50 years with a pension at the end. People need to understand that, and also understand when an economy is growing, for instance, that while right now times might be tough, to be able to, lower your time preference, put off for the future, understanding that things are going to get better. And I think that he did a great job in that article. I thought it was fantastic. I happen to like Adam Smith. I know Ayn Rand didn't really like him, and a lot of objectivists don't. I think he certainly had his problems. But his ideal of the coordinative mechanism of a free economy that ultimately benefits everybody, I think, is an important observation. And I do think that knowledge of economics is very, very important.
What I loved about it was it talked about epistemological and moral values that make for a capitalist society, right? This is what I really loved about it. That first, the mindset of the capitalist, of the entrepreneur, is an exploratory mind. Now, that's one that takes risks. That's one that's curious. That's one that's open. A second characteristic of the mindset of the entrepreneur is an openness, right? The eternal student, willing to take in new information and adjust. That kind of flexibility that we see in an innovative and open society. One of the other qualities that I thought was great was, third, embracing challenges rather than running away from challenges or seeking safety. A free society, the society that we at the American Capitalist Party hope to cultivate, is one in which people embrace challenge. They don't run from it. They embrace it. I think that's psychologically healthy. I think that works all of the right aspects of your personality. It makes you a stronger person. My own personal opinion is that we as human beings should be working towards anti-fragility, the opposite of what the political left wants us to be, right? Helpless and fragile and in need of guidance from somebody who has more knowledge than us, a technocrat. We at the American Capitalist Party understand that you know how best to control your life and what elements and values you need in your life and that you need to follow. And we don't want to get in your way when you're pursuing those values. We want you to have the maximum amount of freedom to be able to realize those values.
Lee says, Mike, there's an idiot in the chat. Lee, we welcome idiots in the chat. They're more than welcome to come here. Yes, idiots are welcome. If people are, even if they're uninformed, then they can listen. Maybe they'll get informed. So we welcome them all. We welcome disagreement. I really don't like low grade disagreement, like Trump is really a capitalist is one of the things this guy has said, and all the smartest people that have ever lived were socialists. Like, make an actual argument. Don't just say things that are palpably false.
Yeah, those are probably false. Trump is not a capitalist and the smartest people that ever lived. Let me tell you something about that, my friend. Intelligence doesn't transfer across topics. So somebody can be very smart in math and very stupid in philosophy. They can be very smart in English, in literature. They could be great writers, but know very little about ethics. They could be ethical intuitionists, like many of them are. So they don't really question very deeply their values. They sort of accepted what society gave them by osmosis, and they write it well and with talent, but that doesn't make them smart with respect to that. So intelligence in one area doesn't necessarily transfer over. And if you want to look at that, you can look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, worth over $300 billion. He's transformed a lot of technology in the world and knows very little about politics, very little about ethics. In fact, I would say he's got probably a second grade notion of that. Not to put down Elon Musk, that's certainly not what the American Capitalist Party wants to do, but Mark Pellegrino wants to say that he has a second grade assessment of politics and ethics. And I'm not sure what you are implying by you're waiting for one of your capitalist losers to come at me with Malthusian economics. We don't believe in Malthusian economics, my friend. In fact, we believe more in the Julian Simon economics, which is that actually
did you just come out with Julian Simon? That is freaking awesome.
So what Julian Simon showed the opposite of Malthusian economics, my friend. Not that there was a dog-eat-dog world, that we would overpopulate the earth in seconds and reduce the natural resources to almost nothing and starve to death. He proved that the more people we had, the more prosperous we became, and the cheaper and more accessible everything got. And that's just a fact. And if you're experiencing any difficulty with accessibility today, it is likely the government that is restraining trade and preventing innovation in that area. So I would recommend to you, my friend, to take your big socialist brains and try to figure out maybe another way around these problems. But your criticisms are welcome. Intelligence transcends expertists.
And then there was this. He says, where'd he go? I'm very happy you understand who John Malthus is. It is a Thomas Robert Malthus or Robert Thomas. I get them mixed up, but it's one or the other. It's not John. So there's that genius.
Not only unlike you, my friend, my bot friend with your many numbers behind your name, we've actually read Malthus. We haven't read about him. So anyway, but I want to move on. Anytime you want to critique, send one of your silly critiques up. We're willing to answer it. We love silliness. But I wanted to talk about this fourth component, or it might be fifth component, to a free society, which I thought was fantastic, because this is right up our alley as objectivists, and it should be right up anybody's alley who wants to live a very good life. One of the qualities of entrepreneurship of a free society is conscientiousness. I just love that concept. I remember Nathaniel Branden wrote a book a while back called The Art of Living Consciously.
Great book.
A great book. I read it when I was actually in therapy with him. Not a great therapist, but actually a great writer. And that book especially made me understand how important it is to be aware, not only conscious, but directional, focused, and absorbed in everything that you're doing. And a free society forces you to do that. I say forces you because you are left to your own devices and you sink or swim based on how you are able to rise to the occasion, right? There are no safety nets, and there are no state-run safety nets, of course. We think in a capitalist society, there would be plenty of charitable safety nets for people who couldn't take care of themselves, because we understand Americans, who are the freest people on earth, also are the most generous people on earth. And when they have more of their resources, they tend to be even more generous. That's not a surprise to me, because liberty is benevolence, and any social system that does not encourage liberty and human sovereignty is malevolent. It's premised on malevolent ideals and a malevolent perspective of humanity, and what it results in is ultimately violence and malevolence. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with much of what I heard, but some of it I was tuned out because I was also reading the chat. But the idea of going back to conscientiousness, which is what you originally mentioned, it's one of the big 5 personality characteristics, and I think that it's very vital for living a good life, and especially in a capitalist society, to be aware of what's happening, to be aware of, your friends, your fellow people that you're around with, so you're not violating people's rights. Contrary to the opinion of some, egoists are not these mass rights violators who just, want to go out and hurt people or, whatever. So with that part of it, and the fact that America is the, freest country ever, at least it was. I mean, it still has its flaws, but we are relatively free. I mean, you and I are free to come out here and have this conversation. We've got B18 Tuner, who's, free to say his dumb things. So overall, I think it's good. But now if this Tuner guy was conscientious, yeah.
Hey, you think it's one of our friends from the American Communist Party?
That's what Ariana just said while you said that.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Maybe he's one of our. Maybe he's one of our.
I don't know.
Little friends.
BA Tuner says he wants to come on. I'm not going to put you on here, BA Tuner, but I'll tell you what. Reach out to me. I'm on social media all over the place. If you'll actually reveal who you really are and you actually want to have a debate, I'm up for it. Look me up. And then maybe we can do it.
There you go. B18 Tuner. Reveal yourself for the man or woman that you are, and the debate is on. Or stay in the shadows and throw rocks from the sidelines. Your rocks are meaningless, but they're fun. I like dealing with them, to be honest with you. And look, my kid is online. She says, imagine stating an argument and not backing it up. That's why she's super smart. And you aren't, Mr. Tuner. But we'll give you another chance. We'll give you as many chances as you want. Come on. I love the challenge. We got a report here from Reason Magazine that particularly pissed me off.
I thought it might, so that's why I sent it to you.
Okay, you knew it would piss me off, and that's why you sent it to me. I see what's going on here. Jeez, I can't escape it. All right, look. So the UN report blames Israel. Oh, Tuner's going to love this, because they love quoting the ICC and the UN as if they are not prejudiced bodies, but a band of experts who are simply talking truth. And here the UN, probably the greatest truth-telling organization in the world, even though it's composed of over 100 authoritarian regimes, did a report recently that blamed Israel and capitalism for the conflict in Gaza. Colonial capitalism, they say, which to me is a contradiction in terms, but to the socialists and to guys like Tuner, colonialism and capitalism go hand in hand. That shows me that they understand neither what capitalism is nor what colonialism is. But you want to talk about a little bit about this incredibly, intensely horrible and evil human being, Francesca Albanese, because I find her repulsive. This is just my opinion, not the opinion of the American Capitalist Party, by the way.
Beyond repulsive, it's just dumb. It's dumb. It's, people that will just blame capitalism for everything. First of all, Israel's not a capitalist country. Let's be honest from the get-go. So even if you accepted the narrative of how evil Israel is, about how evil everything they do, even if you accept the idea that they're colonizers, right? You could take all that It still has nothing to do with capitalism because it's not a capitalist country. It was founded as a semi-socialist country. It is now a mixed economy, even more so than what the American economy is. And the American economy is a mixed economy. So regardless of all the other things, to blame capitalism, it's just dumb. If people, and if you have somebody that is an investor, for instance, and he is using his influence with the government in order to get on the inside of a great deal or something, not capitalism, not free markets, which is what we're here to promote. So no matter how many times people like the woman in that article or people like the American Communist Party want to level their criticisms at places that are not capitalist, it doesn't transmute them into capitalist countries. They simply aren't. Capitalism is not to blame for this. If everybody involved actually were capitalists and respected individual rights, there would be no conflict. There actually would be no physical conflict anywhere on the planet because everybody would be respecting individual rights. I am not suggesting
there would be conflict. There would be conflict. But
what I mean by conflict, there would be no physical wars. There would be no conflict if everybody expected everybody's rights. I'm not suggesting that's a possibility that will ever happen. My point is to use an extreme example to illustrate a point that capitalism cannot be the cause of wars, because a capitalist, somebody that respects individual rights, is not initiating force.
And can I just say, in World Wars I and II, it was the capitalists who were against actually going into war, were labeled isolationists, and in World War II were forced to retool their industries for wartime by President Roosevelt's regime. So actually, capitalists have traditionally been against warfare and expansionism like that. And when our friend B18 Tuner says colonizer, I hope he's talking about the Arabization of the Levant, Asia, North Africa, Eastern and Southern Europe, and even parts of Western Europe, and now a soft colonization of Arabization that is going on in Germany, France, and the UK as we speak. The colonizers here were the Muslims from the Muslim conquest from the 7th century into the 17th century, when they were finally defeated, my friend. Those were the colonizers. The Ottoman Empire was a colonizing force. They were defeated in World War I. Because some folks escaped fascism in Germany and other parts of the world, and pogroms in other parts of the world, and came to Israel as a place to live. Might I add, that was legally recognized by the League of Nations as a sanctuary home for Jews. Those are not colonizers, even if early Zionists used the term colonizing. They didn't use it in the same sense as you are using it, as political entities that come over and exploit local populations. They were immigrants who came over here, bought land privately, and tilled the soil and lived. I might add, the Zionists at the time wanted a socialist utopia. That's why in 1948, when the partition plan was agreed to by the UN, one of the powers that agreed to it, one of the powers that voted for Israel, was the Soviet Union, because they thought they were going to see a socialist utopia in Israel. It went another way. It went to a parliamentary democracy, of course, a mixed bag of tricks. There's lots of contradictions in the system in Israel that make it paradoxes that are super hard to marry, more so than in other cultures. Given the nature of the state that it is. But even given those problems, it is the freest state in the Middle East. It is a state that recognizes individual rights. It is a state that separates judicial, legislative, and executive power. It is a state where the judicial can check the executive and legislative power, and even the power of the armed forces. So it is also a place where Muslims within the country and Arabs within the country who are Israeli citizens have equal rights to Israeli Jews. This does not exist anywhere else in the Middle East, whether you like it or not. The real colonizers are the Arabs. You may not like that, but I suggest you read. I can recommend a few books to you later on, Tuner, if you're up to being tuned up. I'll recommend a few books to you, but I suspect you get your history from Wikipedia and not much further. Anyway, so I'm done with this settler, colonial, capitalistic nonsense that we're getting. It's so obvious that the UN is such a jaundiced international body, and how could it not be?
All right, I'm getting rid of this asshole because he just keeps
Oh,
insulting people, and I don't like that. So he's
okay,
going out.
so you're getting so it's Ken, before you get him out, can I just say something to him, or is he out?
I put him in timeout.
Okay, you're in timeout, Tuner, until you grow up. All right, take your nappies off, get your clean nappies on, have your mommy powder your butt, and then you can come in here in a better mood. We like people who are in a good mood. I like people who are in a bad mood because I'm a bit of a pug, but I'm trying to change that part of myself, my friend. All right, at the request of my esteemed secretary, I am making myself a more peaceful man. Lucky for you. Anyway, so we have to understand that any organization composed of totally divergent political views, good and bad, just roughly composed of relatively good and mostly bad, the compromise between the two is going to always end in a victory for the bad. And this is precisely what we see with the UN and coming out against Israel and making more resolutions and more papers against Israel's crimes against humanity than China, than Putin presently, than Kim Jong-un, and than any other horrible dictator that lives in the world, than the Sudanese and the insanity that's going on over there. It's the Israelis that get picked out precisely because they are successful and powerful and rich, not because they're actually doing wrong. And this is something that we at the American Capitalist Party hope to change, that being successful and rich doesn't mean that you got there by squashing somebody else. In a free society, it means you got there by producing values that other people wanted and exchanging them freely. And you not only profited as the entrepreneur, but the person who got your product profited too, because they valued that product more than the dollar they held in their hand. So when I buy a cell phone, my friend, it is a mutually beneficial exchange with iPhone. All right, they're getting rich, and I'm getting rich. Not only did I give them my $800 or whatever dollars it was for the iPhone, they gave me a computer that gives me access to every piece of information in the world. In the world. Now, just 75 years ago now, that was an impossibility. They literally put a miracle in my hand, and I'm grateful for them. I'm not going to beat them up because Bill Gates or any other tech genius who's made my life infinitely more easy and accessible as making $1 billion. He's made the world richer by trillions. He's made me richer and deserves my praise, not my scorn. Anyway, I think it's time for the capitalist thought of the day, which is this. If you want a benevolent society, if you want a society that actually is kind, then you're going to have to look to capitalism for that society. The only kind society is possible when individuals see each other as sovereign beings and respect each and every individual as a sovereign being. That means that you can only associate with them voluntarily. That means you can only change them via persuasion, not by force. That means that you deal with each other on the trader principle of value for value exchange. That is a benevolent society. That when you understand that your neighbor will not live by skinning you alive, by taking your resources and redistributing them, it makes you much more benevolent towards your neighbor, as opposed to the reverse, which we see today. People closing up and hoarding wealth and isolating themselves because they are their brother's keeper. And those unchosen obligations that are put upon them by a socialist society makes them stingier, makes them malevolent, makes them suspicious. It doesn't make them kinder. Only a free society makes you kinder. So if you want kindness, my friends, you should go to the Capitalist Party. You should go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, donate, and become the change now. You want a better world, a more benevolent world? Choose capitalism, because capitalism is choice. All right, Michael, I see you noticing something in the chat.
I accidentally put Lee in timeout, and I don't know how to get her back.
All right.
Does
So hopefully
anybody
she can...
know? Does anybody know how to get somebody out of timeout? Because I have no clue how to do this.
Can Lee hear us in timeout?
I believe so. I think
so.
so.
Lee, we didn't deliberately put you in timeout. We love you. We want you to know that it was not deliberate. We were trying to put an evil socialist, a bad man, in timeout, and we accidentally put you in timeout. That's called friendly fire. You got caught in friendly. And for that, we should give her some kind of merch. Ariana, is there a way to get her some Capitalist Party merch just to for accidentally putting her in timeout that she didn't deserve? Ariana and I will get on that. We'll get you some merch, Lee, for the fact that my boomer adjacent friend over here entirely screwed up and left the socialist on the. But I don't see the socialist anymore.
No, I got rid of him too. Oh, she's back.
She's
okay.
She's
awesome.
Set up.
Okay.
So Lee, I hope you heard us. We're going to try to get you some Capitalist Party merch because we actually accidentally put you in timeout. You were a victim of friendly fire, and we don't like hurting other capitalist aspirants out there. All right, look, folks, we're done for the day. So we're going to see you here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk about news of the day. What is tomorrow? Is tomorrow Wednesday?
Hump day.
It's hump day. Okay, it's hump day. So we're gonna talk about news from a capitalist perspective. And I want you to do me a super huge favor in the next 23 hours, and that is to check your premises and come here with, I don't know, a new mind, refreshed. Let this show make you be born again. That's what we're going to try to do. That's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make you be born again. And on that note, I bid you adieu.
Adieu.